I saw this video and I wanted to see what it was about, so let's watch it.
If you're Gen Z like me, you probably remember your preteen to teenage years filled with songs mentioning partying a lot. The club can't even handle me right now. The DJ got us falling in love.
It's going
low,
down.
And Jersey
I'm
Shore was
yelling
huge
timber.
during the time.
Jersey Shore was massive, man. I still watch Jersey Shore once in a while. It's interesting to watch them grow in age and get, you know, well into adulthood now.
But it seems songs nowadays don't really mention clubbing at all. And reality shows revolve around love triangles instead of getting drunk or going to the club. The club scene seems to have taken a nosedive. Now, why?
Well, I don't think that... I never understood what clubbing was as a kid, especially. I was always very confused by the concept of going somewhere and not feeling awkward about yourself. That was always a confusing one to me.
Why is this? Well, there's a few reasons,
well,
actually.
Because of the pandemic.
But let's start with the first. The loneliness epidemic.
Are you lonely?
Yeah.
How come?
Are you gonna make me...
I think a lot of people are lonely because the sense of community in the world has really gone away at this point. Like, there's definitely significantly less people out there who feel like they have people around them that understand them and also like the same things that they do and are interested in them. I think it's a really normal thing nowadays that when you tell someone about your interests, they just don't listen at all. They completely tune you out. They think about whatever their interests are. And then at the end of you talking, a lot of times there's not even a response. And that's why I think people are lonely, because we're also segregated from each other in this new way where we've become such individuals that the amount of things that have to line up for you to really find somebody who is understanding of you is massive. It used to be that people would connect on such small things. Everyone would garden in this gardening club, so they would all get together once or twice a week and they would work in the community garden and do all of these things. But nowadays, you need to garden, you need to play Magic the Gathering, you need to be a musician, you need to be a furry, and you need to be an anarcho-socialist in order to find a group of people who are like you. And that's a really difficult thing, because the more factors that you add in, the more chances that someone doesn't have one of those factors. And nowadays, when we see somebody who has even one thing different to us, we immediately don't like them. I don't know when this started happening. I'm assuming it was during the pandemic and with all the social media boom and with all of the people getting so angry at each other. But it's so unavoidable now.
Emotional.
It is sad. I know most people are lonely.
Am I lonely?
I feel a lot of loneliness sometimes. I don't know how to explain it. It's not like it consumes my life or I'm really upset by it. It's just that there are definitely moments in my life where I realize, oh, I'm doing this all alone. I'm grinding my RuneScape skills to level 99 for me, and nobody else cares about it. Not even the people who play RuneScape, because I'm not enough like them for them to care about me. And even if they throw around some kind of, oh, congratulations, or oh, this or that, or whatever, it's still not, it's not deep and personal the way we want it to be. And what we're looking for is deep and personal, and it's so hard to find.
Jesus Christ.
This guy.
It's tough. Like, I have a very social job. I live with 3 other people. I have 3 different romantic partners.
3 different romantic partners. Come here. She wants up here so bad she's growling at me. Wow. Continue.
I should say no.
But
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
people are trying to fill up voids that are
According to the most recent Healthy
unignorably
Minds
there.
monthly poll conducted by the American Psychiatric Association, a large portion of adults reported experiencing loneliness on a regular basis in early 2024. Specifically,
Yeah.
30% of respondents noted feeling lonely at least once a week throughout the past year.
This is what I'm saying, and it's difficult and it's ethereal, and people think that when you say you're lonely, or people think that when you say you're depressed, or people think that when you say you've had suicidal thoughts or whatever, people imagine this crisis. And because most often, most of the time, people aren't actually in a crisis when they talk about these things, then we start to have this weird thing where people go, oh, they're just lying. They're not telling the truth. They're not actually feeling these things. They're just saying it for attention or whatever. But you can have these feelings and it not be a crisis. I don't know how to explain to people who have never dealt with depression of, oh, the majority of the time I'm dealing with depression. The majority of the time I'm dealing with these issues. And yeah, I still get out there and go to the gym. And yeah, I still show up and do the things that I need to do. And yeah, I still take care of my family, but yeah, I still feel lonely. None of them ask me about anything that I care about. Nobody has any idea what's going on inside of me or in my life. And most people don't care to. It's really confusing because you can be surrounded by people nonstop and none of them are actually going to get super involved in you because they have their own shit going on. It's really a complex issue.
Here, while 10% indicated experiencing daily loneliness. The survey also
I think so much about the the drunk girls hanging out, and one of them is talking about their issues, and then at the end of it, the other one gives them a big hug and goes, "Oh, I'm so glad that you're in my life," or whatever, a canned generic response. And that thing feels good for a while, and you can convince yourself that that person actually cares about you for a while. But if you hang out with people long enough and you bring up something to them that you've discussed previously, and they don't have some kind of response for you immediately of, oh yeah, this is that thing that we talked about the other day, you realize that they're not actually internalizing anything that you're talking to them about. You see through the facade of the social media response thing that we do, right? The canned response that you say to get likes, the canned response that you say to make people feel that you have some sense of care for them. But if you discover that that's not true eventually, man, it's really hard to go back. Once you see through the facade, it's always a facade to you then.
Highlighted that younger individuals were more prone to feeling lonely, with 30% of those aged 18 to 34 reporting experiencing loneliness daily or several times a week. It gets even worse, specifically for men. Men have experienced a decline in close friendships. Women have also experienced this, but less pronounced. According to the Survey Center on American Life,
I think this is becoming less and less true. I think that men and women are experiencing loneliness at the same rates nowadays.
Men with at least 6 close friends.
You'll start to see, I think over the next 10, 15, 20 years, mental health in women declining at an alarming rate, and you'll also start to see suicide rates in women increasing at an alarming rate.
Has fallen by half since 1990. 1 in 5 single men says he has 0 close friends. In 1990, approximately 45% of young men stated that their initial inclination when facing a personal issue was to seek support from their friends. However, today, merely 22% of young men turn to their friends for assistance during tough times.
Well, it's an odd thing, right? You end up not wanting to go to close friends for support because you don't want to have to face down issues with other people. People don't want to have to deal with your issues. That's arguably not what your interpersonal relationships are for, and a lot of people argue that that's what therapy's for nowadays. I think that some of the best conversations that I've had are when you are vulnerable with other people, specifically other people who are like me, so men, and you're reaffirmed that they go through the same thing. I once had a conversation with my friend Dakota, and he said, a big problem in the world with men is that they don't talk about these things very much. They don't talk about their close relationships and how difficult it is to maintain a close relationship, and that becomes an issue for them. And I agree with that, but I think it's becoming that way with women too.
Possibilities for why this might be.
To recap, I said that when you love somebody, you should take interest in what they take interest in.
I think it's pretty obvious to most. Technology. While social media has done a pretty decent job at connecting people who might not have connected in real life, it's gone too far. Similar to how a casino tries every way to keep you engaged in the bet by not having windows.
It doesn't create unity anymore. There are no friendships being made on social media, and if they are, they're exceedingly far and few between. The majority of people who are using social media are using it to create enemies, to argue with each other, to get mad, to have problems. That's what they want. It's this weird signaling thing where you go, oh, I'm against this thing, so I need to make it known that I'm against this thing because I roll with a crowd that's against this thing. But you never see an outpouring of support for the person who's against this thing. You just see more arguments going on. Even people who agree with that person will put the word "but" somewhere really firmly in their statement of why of how they agree with them. I agree with you, but I think this other thing too, and you're not really using a diverse enough opinion here.
No clocks, letting you win, then letting you lose. Social media acts pretty much in the same way. It's geared to keep you hooked for hours. It literally is a ticket to addiction, and I find it a bit reckless and cruel that those who created these apps just let them loose on children to keep them hooked.
And now we have
So in these sports betting apps nowadays, you can see you can see how much you've won over time, right? You can see how much money you've put in and how much money you've won back. And that's, I think, one of the funniest things that there is about it, because I recently had my friend pull out his sports betting app, and he always tells me about how he's such a winner, how he does so well in all these bets and everything. And then I had him pull out his app, and clear as day right there, you could see that he had spent X amount of dollars and he was in the red a certain amount of money. Unavoidable. And that's what I think social media does, right? Like, I don't think that social media is letting you win at any point. The house always wins. They're always subtracting more from your life than they're giving because they're a company, and in order to exist and to thrive, they have to take more out of you than they give you.
the iPad and the smartphone. But while they are great restaurant distractions, what are all those touchscreens doing to all those growing little brains?
Yeah.
It's even more baffling when they set limits for their own children, so they fully understand the detriment. They just don't seem to care. So of course no one's going out. They have technology to keep them entertained.
Totally.
A slot machine in their hands for constant entertainment. We're all distracted. But it's not.
I worry about that constantly, especially when I'm, say, playing a video game and I'm on a loading screen or I'm queuing up for a match and I can't help but pick up my phone. That always makes me worried. And I worry that there are more and more things that I put in my life that keep me picking up my phone. I check YouTube statistics all the time. I check my remote desktop to click on RuneScape. I check my email. I check my TikTok account. I do all of these things constantly, and it's really unfortunate. It definitely pulls you out of whatever situation you're in. And if you're on your phone, you do not have the ability to interact with the people around you and to connect with them in any kind of meaningful way. You cannot pay attention to two things at the same time. It's not possible.
Not only social media to blame, of course. Another is cost. It's expensive to run a venue, and drink prices seem to keep rising along with cover fees. I know most people my age just plain don't have the extra money to spend. For those who can afford...
Yeah, and there's not a place that I want to go to spend my time. That's a big part of it. There's not a whole lot of places that interest me. I don't want to go to a bar that's loud and has all the townies that I grew up with, and they're all have this clique that I'm not a part of, and I'm a pet that shows up and they all run over to me and, oh, Cole, hi, I haven't seen you in, and they give me a hug or whatever. I don't want to do that on a regular basis, and I don't want to go there enough to become a part of that clique so that stops happening. There's not internet cafes or things around that really interest me, you know? I'm a musician, but I don't love going to live shows because there's not a whole lot of live shows that don't cost a ton of money that I think are that interesting to go to. I've seen the local bands so many times at this point in my life, and not a lot changes year to year to year with them. So it doesn't really appeal to me that much. And I'd much rather just stay at home, and I'd much rather do what I want to do. And then the problem occurs that not a lot of my friends have any desire to do the things that I want to do. And then you start to wonder, well, how are we friends then if we don't have any of these interests shared?
And for those who don't live in major cities, there seems to be a lack of options.
Exactly.
At a certain point, people get tired of going to the club where they can't hear their friends talk because the music's blaring too loud. It's not exactly a place
exactly
to connect on a deeper level. Bars and clubs are shutting down. It seems now the most popular option is to find entertainment at home.
So many restaurants have shut down in my area too. Just all of the restaurants downtown are slowly going away.
Through streaming or whatever else might be on your phone, TV, or computer. While a lot of people cite the pandemic as the cause of the club culture decline. I don't think that's the root cause. It definitely escalated it, but I don't think it's the main
Exactly. Yeah,
cause.
I agree with
Music
that.
is a culture's lifeblood. If we see the most popular hits of each year, we can see a steady decline in the songs alluding to clubs, dancing, and partying. Starting in 2000,
You can see a decline in good music coming out too. And I'm not talking about I'm not talking about how every generation thinks that their music was the best music and blah, blah, blah. But you're seeing a lack of density of super high level music coming out. There is fewer and fewer musicians making music at a high level every single year. And a lot of that is because of the formulaic response to music. Nowadays, you're seeing more and more people take cracks at being a musician who have lower and lower levels of experience in it. But because music is so formulaic and so capable to be made without skill levels because of things like AI generation, because of, beat producers, because of access to YouTube tutorials on how to do things, that there's less creativity and more people stumbling upon how do I make a song that sounds like every other song really quickly and easily. So then because you don't have nuance of experience in the field, then you're getting all of these songs that sound like they kind of should be songs, but they're not memorable whatsoever. They don't have any lyrical content that you care about. They feel like they come from a very cliche and cheesy place. You feel like you've seen it before. How many people have you seen on Instagram with face tattoos who sound like they're XXXTentacion without any of the cadence or ability or energy that kid had? Not that I care for XXX or enjoyed the way he behaved as a person, but you get my point. How many country musicians have you heard in the past 5 years that are just emulating what other people are doing, but they obviously don't have whatever that intangible thing is that makes you a star? I am sort of one of those musicians. I don't post a whole lot of my music because I feel that way about myself. And I just don't think it's worth flooding the world and trying to push and make all these TikToks. Did I just create the song of the summer? And it's obviously not the song of the summer. I think that's the most cringy thing. And when the music isn't being made that's good and you don't have a soundtrack to your summer, what do you do, dude? Thank goodness for Post Malone, man.
2003, 50 Cent's In the Club sparked a new surge of electronic club music. And in each consecutive year, for the most part, it continues. Up until 2010. Totally. In 2010, we see Kesha's song TikTok blow up. The perfect party song about getting drunk, partying, and waking up feeling like P. Diddy. Interesting to note, by the way, she did change the lyrics at her most recent Coachella performance following the allegations against him. But after 2010, we see a halt to songs alluding to club culture. This is where I see a major difference between Gen Z and millennials. I might be painting with a broad brush right now, but to distill it down, millennials seem to have been sold this idea about the world from their boomer parents.
Yes.
They were told that to get a degree would be the ticket to success. So
I talked about this the other day, and this is such a real thing. I'm right on that verge, right? I'm 29 years old. I was born in 1995, and depending on what you look at, I'm either Gen Z or millennial, so I'm sort of on the edge. But I was definitely sold this idea from my parents about how the world works. And then I think that was how the world works back then. But nowadays, the world is completely different. I don't think there's a pathway that you can follow that will take you to where it is that you want to go nowadays, especially because the things that people want to do nowadays, being entertainers in the specific way, being able to do all these different things, having this lavish lifestyle, those aren't things that people were striving for back in the day. And so now you have to make up your own pathway. And when you make up your own pathway, there's no camaraderie between you and the people who are on different pathways. And camaraderie is what grows friendships and interest. And now that we're doing that, this hyper-individualism, which I think is a good thing, obviously. I like the fact that people are thinking for themselves and doing their own things, but we have lost community because of it. And that's where the loneliness comes from. Now, I'm not super sold on the idea that the loneliness is bad. Sorry, I'm not super sold on the idea that the loneliness is avoidable. And I think that unavoidable stuff can't be looked at as being good or bad because it has to exist. But we'll talk about that later.
Hunkered off to college, with 2010 being the peak year of college enrollment. 21 million students were enrolled.
Oh.
And what do kids do at college?
It's literally going down. This is sort of my thought about education lately. Anyways, maybe we'll talk about that at some point soon.
21 million students were enrolled. And what do kids do at college? They party.
Yeah, supposedly. I never got invited to no parties. That's not true. I did a lot of partying in high school more than I did in college. But I didn't go to college for any amount of time.
The college I lived close to was actually deemed the nation's #1 party school by the Princeton Review in 2013. That was the thing. Deemed the nation's #1 party school by the Princeton Review in 2013. That was the thing to do at college. The idea sold. You go to college, party, and have fun, get the degree, get out, and make that money. But Gen Z was sold a different idea. The prices keep rising, money taken going to more luxurious accommodations,
That's
gyms,
what Gen Z
and
was
stadiums.
Sold.
You've probably heard about skyrocketing college tuition. But what you may not know is what many colleges are actually doing with all that money.
This has dropped enrollment down from 21 million.
I didn't have any interest in partying as I got older. When I was in high school, I did my stint of partying and went to parties and did all the things that you would expect of young people to do. But by the time I was 18 or 19, I think I had made choices in my life that made my life difficult on me in a way that I didn't really have time for partying. And every party that I went to as I got older, I just felt lonelier and lonelier and lonelier at, because I wasn't drinking as heavily or doing as many drugs as those people were doing a lot of the times. And when you're not on the same wavelength of somebody else in that way, they become annoying to you in a real particular way. Try to be around someone who's on coke when you're not also on coke and see what that's like. They are just really close to your face and talking a lot about things that you couldn't care less about, or be around people who are just really drunk when you're not really drunk. It's not a fun experience. You have to be on the same wavelength. And I fell into that kind of trap of, oh, this is so vacuous, man. This isn't what life's really about, man. And that's the way that I internalized. And so I had a really hard time connecting in those situations.
To 18 million in 2023. And realizing that a degree doesn't really equate to happiness, considering there's a lot of unhappy employees that hate their jobs, they opt for something else entirely. I would consider Gen Z to be the entrepreneurial generation, the freelance generation. They're nihilistic about most things, but they still have to find a way to play the game. So technology use, lack of options, declining college enrollment.
Finding a way to play the game is a great way to put that statement too, because it is a game that we're all playing out here, and the standard rule set that most people use doesn't work for a lot of people nowadays. There aren't a whole lot of jobs where you can even have the opportunity to get a whole bunch of overtime and make all this extra money so that you can afford to play the same game that other people are. So people started looking for new ways to do it. And once again, when you're freelancing, when you're an entrepreneur, when you're working by yourself, you don't have that ability to build camaraderie the way that you used to. When I worked in a restaurant, I think my camaraderie was at an all-time high because I just knew so many people in that restaurant. There were probably, I don't know, conservatively 25 to 35 employees working at that restaurant at any given time, and those are all people that you become exceptionally close with because you spend so much time with them. And when you're working alone, you don't have anyone to become close like that with.
Enrollment all seem to have been contributing to the decline in club culture or partying culture. But there's still one major factor we haven't covered that's often overlooked, and that would be dating apps. Tinder blew up around 2013.
I've never used the dating app.
And what we see now are countless apps to pick from as far as dating goes.
I don't have any idea
if not all club songs allude to hookups. It's a common trope. But when Tinder came out, it changed the game. Now you don't have
hookups are so much pressure, dude. I know that most people see it as the opposite, or at least I think they see it as the opposite, but me and a few of my friends have had conversations about how hookups are just so uncomfortable. I don't understand why that's people's goals.
You have to go to a physical space to find someone. You can literally just get on your phone and swipe like you're picking through a bag of chips. Before 1990, the most common way for couples to meet was through friends. After 1990, we see a major uptick in couples meeting online, with it increasing up until a little after 2010, where it overtook meeting through friends and has stayed number one since. So we see all these factors coming together, but there's still one more thing, the nail in the coffin, and that would be COVID-19. The pandemic changed everything, with bars, restaurants, and coffee shops closing down. A lot of people
We were the last holdout, fellas. Oh, that was so cool. I remember for so long it took West Virginia forever to get a case. We were killing it. Us bumpkins were just out here in the mountains chilling, baby. We thought it couldn't exist here. It was so fun to watch people's theories online of, oh yeah, we're the best because we don't have any COVID cases.
People became comfortable staying in during that time, and the trend seems to have continued. Though there was a slight uptick after the pandemic and restrictions were lifted, but I suspect that too will decrease.
Yeah, who doesn't love staying inside? I put out an EP at that time called "Goodbye Outside," and I mean, I think the most cliche thing that you could have done at that point for sure. And you know, I love my house. I've put everything in here that I want. It's perfectly tailored towards me. Why would I want to go somewhere to be around people that I don't have any say of what they're doing whatsoever, around a whole bunch of things that I don't particularly enjoy, when I could just stay at home? I could just stay here and be around my computer and my friends that I like, and play the video games that I want to play, and watch the TV shows that I want to watch, and listen to the music that I want to watch or listen to, and eat the food that I want to eat.
The key demographic for nightclub goers are people from the ages of 18 to 34. Taking a step back from statistics and graphs, what do people who are in those age ranges say about clubs, their own opinions? This person cites COVID as a contributor, as well as aging out of it. And another person says that home entertainment is to blame, as well as monetary reasons. And last but not least, one of the most popular opinions was the preference for just plain peace and quiet.
Yeah.
This, to me, seems to be the most popular reason.
I think it's all of the above mixed with new social rules going on. You know, I think that the rise of cancel culture had something to do with it as well. I think that the extreme us versus them mentality of the past few years has a lot to do with it. I'm going to be honest, I just don't feel very comfortable amongst a mixed crowd anymore. Not that I think I have opinions that are crazy or outlandish or harmful to people, but I'm somewhat of a moderate. I tend to think that both sides usually have points that are valid, and both sides usually have points that are just sticking argument points because that's an easy thing for them to fight about. And that's not a very popular opinion whenever you're in a group of people who might feel that they associate really strongly with one group or the other. And so if you're out amongst those people and you say something, you might have a bad night all of a sudden because you find yourself amongst what you thought were friends but end up not being very friendly. And that's a weird thing to think about, you know? You go out into the world nowadays and you don't know what's on people's minds. You live in all these different bubbles where we're being force-fed completely different streams of information, and that creates this strange problem where you might not have anything to talk about because you might not have seen any of the same things for the past 2 weeks.
The atmosphere of bars and clubs seem to encourage numbing yourself to the point where you don't have sensory perception.
Yeah.
With alcohol, drugs, and music all playing their part. To almost numb yourself to closer connections. In this time we're in, we're seeking more. And that doesn't just mean from what the world has to offer, but from our close connections with others as well. The younger generations are looking for ways to connect with people in ways that actually foster conversation and the possibility of new friendships. We're wanting third places. You see it everywhere. We lack third places. Places that aren't your home, that aren't your work, but are a place where the community can gather. Places where you can engage either in direct social interaction through small talk and activities or indirect.
Well, it's also forced people into hiding a lot, right? You see this video, this clip right here, and I have opinions immediately forming about the group of people who are gathering here. And everyone will. And some of those people will have very negative opinions of them. Some of those people will feel that these people should be shamed for being who they are and gathering amongst people who are like them. And that's a big part of the reason that I think that you've seen communities break down. If before you stumble into something that makes you think that this is cool, if you stumble into something that makes you think that this is evil, you will have a marred opinion, and this will be closed off to you, lest you think that you are becoming evil.
Social interaction while being surrounded by people with similar interests to yourself. There's been a rapid decline in these places since the beginning of the information age. Yes, a lot of people claim, well, these places are just moving online. Well, yes,
No,
they are,
not.
but they aren't providing the same sense of satisfaction as you get from in-person interaction. Studies show that more time spent on social media is associated with higher levels of loneliness. The reason people become lonely is the lack of connection. Connection is created through understanding, by realizing, well, you're a lot like me. We have a lot in common. I can see from your point of view. We're linked in some way. It's a lot like empathy, by seeing through another person's point of view. You just don't get that nearly as deeply online as you do in person. Online interactions are fleeting. Sometimes you don't even know what the person looks like. It's just words on a screen. Hard to feel connected that way. Can we rectify the concept of third places? It seems this younger generation is looking for more places to pursue hobbies with like-minded people. Dedicated.
Agreed. I think that as far as being someone like me, there's not a lot of third places available. I know that there are card shops, and I know that a lot of quote-unquote nerds find those card shops to be places of camaraderie, but if you don't play card games, which is such a small section of the people who are into nerdy stuff, then what are you going to do at a card shop? Just go there and watch other people play card games? And maybe that is what some people will do, but I don't think that's a good cop-out for what this needs. We need to create places, and maybe that's somewhat of our responsibility, to create places where we can do things that are variable, where it doesn't have to be this one specific thing, because if people lose interest in that one specific thing, then things fall apart. I don't know. It's like I said, it's a very difficult problem because each individual now has so many different things that they're into, and they usually are bouncing around from thing to thing. They might be really into this video game for a super long time, and then they get really into, oh, I want to write short stories online after that. And then they go, oh, now I'm really into plants. And during that time, they're probably not really following the hobby that they were into a few months ago. And all those friends that you made probably aren't going to have the exact same pathway that you do through the things that interest them. They probably won't go from books to plants to writing short stories to playing a video game to playing Dungeons and Dragons to going to the bar. It could, even if they have the same interests, it could be in different orders. And you're asking someone to sacrifice what they enjoy in order to come along with you on what you enjoy at that moment. And the whim is difficult. This is another thing where I think discipline really comes into play. I think that playing a video game is a discipline act. That staying into this specific game, saying, I'm going to play this game for 3 years straight, is very, very heavy on the discipline factor. It's hard to show up every single day to something, even to something that people consider to be a fun thing, especially when you don't want to.
Spaces to pursue things like pottery, music, gardening, playing games. Places where you don't have to spend a ton of money to enjoy. No pounding music, but good songs with a lowered volume. Decently decorated where the atmosphere is cozy and not sterile.
Arcades
Looking at different forums and blog posts, this seems to be the most popular idea. A hobby center. And I agree with this sentiment. I've moved to a few different places in my life, and if you aren't a student or don't work a very social job, it can be pretty hard to make friends.
Definitely.
Meetup seems to be a popular recommendation, but upon looking at the different groups, most don't get a lot of people attending, and if they do, they are of a very different age demographic.
I always make the joke to people of, oh yeah, just the community club sign-up board. Let me go look at that. Oh wait, that's not real. Where are these clubs that people always tell me to join?
I do think that as this issue continues to rise in the public's mind, more solutions will be found. With the rise of work from home jobs and social media careers, I think we'll start to see more people desperate to find their third
Crowdsourcing
place.
the solution
Most are
is
tired
always a
of
good
rotting
idea.
in their bedrooms on their phone and want to live more exciting lives and not characterized by a life online or at work. And I hope that in my lifetime we find it.
Yeah.
I think we will.
Good deal, Em. Good deal. Good video. Give the video a like. Sub to Em. That was cool. Yeah, I'm glad that other people are looking at it and seeing it from the same way that I am. I've oftentimes considered this problem as well, and I think that it will continue to grow over the next decade, 2 decades or so, and it will take time for us to figure out how to break through that. There are definitely people who are still really good at making friends and still really good at finding places to go out, but I always harp on this concept that just because there are people who are good at it doesn't mean that everyone's good at it, and doesn't mean that the majority of people are good at it. If you go looking in places for answers and solutions to how do I make friends, a lot of times you get these people who are hyper able to do that, but that might not work for the person that they're getting advice from. You have to look into people who are not so good at making friends. That's what it comes down to. Loneliness is a really scary thing. But like I said, I don't know if it's avoidable anymore. I think that the nature of the beast now is inherent to loneliness. And so we're going to have to learn how to deal with that in some kind of way. It's hard to call it good or bad because of that.